Hey Chris, what do you call it when a AAA game publisher releases their first VR game?
What?
A mess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Welcome to another episode of the Virtual Boys, guys. I'm Chris from Jughead Gaming. This is Ryan from the VR Grid. If you're listening to this, you probably know us. Today, we are going to be talking about AAA studios coming into the VR market. We have a specific example with Medal of Honor in front of us, so we're going to talk about that and just some related issues about big companies, expectations, and especially how it relates to VR. So come along with us. We're going to chit chat for a little while, and yeah, let's jump into it, I guess. Ryan, what has your elevator pitch been experience-wise for Medal of Honor?
I mean, it's mixed. Like I said, it's hilarious. I mean, this is EA's. I guess it's not technically their first foray now into VR with Squadrons beating it to the punch slightly. But I mean, we're talking about different developers.
We're talking publishing, yeah.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, EA still kind of gives these things the go-ahead, right? And with Medal of Honor and Respawn, I guess is who we're talking about. You can just, man, this whole conversation. It's AAA developers who just dropped the ball at a game's launch. So with Medal of Honor, right off the hop, the first thing anybody who can handle it in VR does is go to settings and turn off click turning or turn on smooth turning, and figure that out.
Yeah.
And the first thing I go in there, I'm like, there's no smooth turning. I'm going through the options.
I couldn't believe it. I went back 3 times. I went through the menus in I was like, well, maybe is it in comfort? Is it in gameplay? I don't know. Where it has to be here. How could they do that?
Stupid. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So like right off the hop, it's just like, how are we over 4 years deep into this generation of VR and still dealing with big and small developers who refuse to include all comfort settings? And I don't need, if you need click turning, if you need all that stuff, that's fine. Like, put it on there. That's great. It's great to have it there for those that can't handle VR, full immersion. If that's what it takes for you can enjoy these games, fantastic. But for those of us that can handle actually, like turning in a game like I would in the real life, the fact that these VR devs aren't including this stuff in options, and it's there now. For the record, since the game launched, they patched it in.
Yeah.
But still, like, the launch is like, that's your window, man. That's your that's your first impressions out of the gate. This is what's going to sell us game. Reviewers and stuff who are out there who are going to review your game, they're reviewing that build. And to sit there and think reviewers are going to go back in time and babysit every single update, it's just not. It's not likely to happen. I'm sure the auto review is going to come out. That's going to say, look, that it doesn't have these issues that were mentioned at launch. But I mean, that's your window, man. You can go back through, throughout history, out of VR and find issues. Cyberpunk is the latest example of just a game that's a broken mess out at launch. But VR specifically, you can look back in like Gollum and Gollum's just awful control scheme, and the question is like,
I didn't hate
why?
Gollum.
Dude, I gave Gollum an outstanding, a solid review when it launched, and I actually took the time to go back and re-review it after they patched it, because I thought that game did warrant an updated review that wasn't just like, oh god, the controls are awful, my neck hurts, this is brutal.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, I forgot.
Yeah,
I actually
right?
forgot about that. But back to the click turning thing. When I'm first of all, I hate it when they miss out major issues like this. That they should just pay attention to the industry. Jesus, like, I mean, I'll save that for later. I've got another perfect example of a AAA studio just having their like duh moment in VR. But when I review a title and they don't have click turning, there's 2 reasons. The first one is, well, they're scared of making people sick. And that, especially being a AAA title, that's the first thing I think of, because you've got guys like Sony, for example. You and I kind of are birthing ourselves VR-wise on the PSVR. There's certain things that we're used to, and one of those is being brought up by an overprotective parent, so to speak. And the other thing being, again, and I think this is also us being raised on PSVR in the early VR days, is sometimes it's a performance thing. Like a perfect example
Yeah.
that just jumps out of my mind would be, oh my gosh, it's completely, now I can't even think of the title.
Code 51.
No,
Okay.
that's another example. But they made that work like 2 weeks later. No,
Yeah.
I would say this is a game that never fixed itself because it literally couldn't do it. That Portal game, remember that Portal game that was kind of like Portal? Had aim support, you shot paint. It was
Yeah,
that one.
I love.
I know. I'm derping.
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm derping
We were
on
talking to Des with that. I love the fact because it was 3 colors, but because I'm colorblind, that game actually kind of
What?
confused me. Yeah,
I
I'm
didn't know
colorblind.
that. Wow, I didn't know these. I
But
wouldn't
that
be
game,
friends with you.
you could toggle icons over the colors. So you could match up the symbols. I love that. I mean, my colorblindness it doesn't affect me too often in games. Very rarely does it actually become an issue. But when it does, it's nice to see that mode in there. Like there's one game. Now we're getting sidetracked here.
Totally.
Where the colorblind mode's actually in the game, and I turned it on, and it ruined the whole game for me. Like everything looked like the same color. I was like, oh my god, this is not the solution to my problem.
Well, and there's a lot, and I mean, there's a lot of games trying to implement that, but accessibility, it sounds like another episode. But what I was just getting at is that game specifically had only click turning. That sucked, especially as PSVR guys, and anyone listening who's a PSVR headset, especially if you're exclusively a PSVR headset, you know the pain of that because when they don't give you smooth turning, you don't have smooth turning. You can't just turn around 360 in your room, which we can get a what?
Chroma gun.
Thank you. I saw that. I saw this. I wasn't sure what this little hand movement was.
I couldn't let that go.
I'm like, he's either stroking out or he's got something to say. But anyways, Chroma gun. Thank you, because that would have started. That would have been eating at me for the whole hour. Chroma gun had issues with no click turning, but I noticed that the game wasn't running awesome. It had been delayed for performance issues on the PlayStation. It wasn't a solid port. It was good, but you could tell that there was some issues, and they got so much pushback from the PSVR community, which, you know, that's our whole point, is that every game who doesn't gets pushed back so hard on. I can't believe it's still being a thing. But that aside, Chroma Gun did it about 2 weeks later, a week later. They patched it and said, okay, here you go. And we realized immediately why they didn't do it. It was chugging. Like, it was, I don't get motion sickness, and it was not a comfortable play. It couldn't do smooth turning. And then you could tell that Sony would, and then I found out, I think later on through a dev conversation, Sony wouldn't let them put smooth turning in. It didn't meet their quality assurance, so they snuck it in on a patch, which we've seen devs do. It's just, it's not always a duh moment. It's a we can't make it work moment. And there's a lot of PSVR titles where that was the reason.
Like I said, I mean, not for click turning. I mean, click turning. I mean, we can talk about the Vader Immortal. That's been one of the biggest ones this year, at least on PlayStation. But it's still on the PC. On PC, it's only click turning as well. It's still, you know, even Tales from Galaxy's Edge, which is a Quest only game right now, I think.
Yes.
Same guys as Vader Immortal, ILXM Lab.
Smooth
click turning.
It's smooth. Isn't it?
No.
I mean, I don't even remember. But here's the thing.
It's transitional. They call it transitional.
Oh, okay.
So instead of it going clicking, now it animates the turn, but it still turns in
the
degrees.
reason I don't remember that, now that I think back to it, okay, yes, is that I do just turn then in real life. I can't do it. I mean, you were over at my place and you saw that I have that little swivel chair. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, which is all of you, I have a bar stool basically that I bought to play VR in so that I could kind of stand, kind of sit just for longer sessions and have full swivel and get rid of the armchair, the arms on the computer chairs. So that's been a beautiful thing for me. And if you guys watch my review, sometimes you'll probably see that like amazing Michael Jackson spin that I can do now. And that's all the chair. And that's these last few titles that we've been playing. It was a savior to be able to jump into the seat then for Medal of Honor and just like deal with it that way. But I couldn't believe it. I was streaming. I was like, what?
Same, dude. The exact same thing. I said the first thing I did.
It's a multiplayer game.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's crazy. And then the fact that and it's funny because there's issues like, you know, now that we bring up multiplayer. I mean, there's issues with turning in multiplayer games that's actually bigger than, like, you know, if you have 90-degree click turning on versus like slow smooth turning, then you potentially have an advantage depending on like how fast you can turn in a multiplayer game, which is kind of like a twofold thing. So not only now we get smooth turnings in the game, which is fine, it's kind of slow, and there's no slider to adjust that. So now
speed's a problem
the sliders
too,
the sliders to adjust increment turning or pie chart turning or click turning as we're
Yeah.
calling it. But for smooth turning, I mean, I've seen it in some games, but lots of games just have the one pace and that's it. And in a game that's like, that requires you to like shoot guys all around you, if you're turning at a snail's pace, this goes back to even like Swords of Gargantua on PlayStation. That turn speed, that smooth
Thank
turn
you.
speed
That's
there
what it was. I was trying to think of what
is,
game it was. It's not fast enough.
yeah, it's super slow.
You can't react
And,
fast enough.
as I'm flashing back to this is actually hilarious. I used to play Medal of Honor on the GameCube multiplayer, local multiplayer, and we played it on PlayStation and it ran just fine. And we played on GameCube. We actually realized that the turn speed in the game wasn't as fast as the strafe speed. So every fight developed to one guy being in the middle and one guy strafing around him. And that's a Medal of Honor game. Like I just now recalled that, and I can't help but laugh at the fact that it's a different issue in VR, but it's the exact same issue. And
it's just duh. It's like who's and the other. Okay, so I want to get back on topic a little bit about this, about Respawn specifically,
yes,
and how they handled Medal of Honor. But just before I don't even know where I was going with this now. I've totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's gone. So let's go back to Medal of Honor.
look, they've patched it since that launch, but like I said, the focus on this on for this episode was these games launching in some I guess a broken state. Not broken. Broken's not quite the right word for Medal of Honor, but it's missing. I mean, key features. This is a PC exclusive title, and if you go to your graphic settings on PC, there was low resolution, medium resolution, and high resolution
for a game for a game that had incredibly their recommended requirements, for those of you who don't know, was a 2080. And if you want to put that into some type of a perspective, that's actually more powerful than the PS5 if you had to give it a GPU. Supposedly the GPU, if you had to compare it to something, which is really hard because it's custom tech and it's dedicated tech, it's around a 2070 is what I've heard. With sometimes it reaching the 3700 on certain certain things in for example Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There's certain lighting things and things going on with like vegetation stuff that's actually like the PC's not even doing, but that's another story entirely. But I'm just giving, for those of you who don't have your head in the PC space, which is probably a lot of you guys listening, it's a beefy requirements for this game. And so to get like one single graphics slider, again, that was almost like, what? Like this is, people are going to want to tweak this to get it to run, and it doesn't even look that good when you drop it down from high.
No, and and the game itself, I don't think the game itself even looks that great overall. What it lacks in quality of visuals, it kind of makes up for in quantity. Like everything in the environment can be shot at, and like all the like 10,000 glass jars around you in like a bunker, and you can shoot every single jar. So this thing is like doing a lot more.
I thought it was gorgeous. I would actually, I would still say it's top 5.
Good. It doesn't look bad by any stretch. I think a large part of that just comes from how much is around you. Like you can see endlessly. I think it does the right stuff. I don't think it kind of honestly remind me of like Saints and Sinners, but a bit more polished, I guess, like a little more realistic visuals. But I never got that even on max settings. And even though I got issues on max settings with my 2070 Super, it's still to me kind of like a bit cartoony.
Oh yes, and I made I made a comment in my review that, and I'm curious to see what you think about this. I mean, this is kind of going off on a side topic a little bit, but sorry guys, that's what happens with Ryan and I. In my review, I said that I thought, as far as visuals, I said it's a beautiful game. It may not blow your mind like say Half-Life Alyx did, but it's a lot more ambitious than Half-Life Alyx. Like Half-Life was very, very carefully designed for VR in the fact that it was very corridory. It happened a lot underground, so they didn't have to do distance shots. I mean, when they did distance, it was mind-blowing, but they were very careful with that. That opening scene that everybody knows, probably even if they don't have the game. But the fact is that I felt that playing this game, I could tell this was a AAA developer with really, really good artists. Like it was beautiful, and I think it had a very specific art design that, to me, I think was maybe chosen for VR because it was able to, like you said, skew things slightly cartoony, but still going for a realistic feel. The lighting was actually amazing in that game, which is probably what's hogging a lot of the GPU that it wants, because the lighting's actually phenomenal in that. Some like really nice real-time lighting that you can see, especially when you're in the levels with trees and the forest. Is like it's pretty epic.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
But my point is I think it's intentional, because if I'm a Medal of Honor veteran, in the fact that when I heard that Medal of Honor was going back to its roots, did you know that they actually have some people on the development team from the PS1 game?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it really is a throwback to the first one, and I think that it went for that same look, because Medal of Honor, the early Medal of Honors, the ones that I remember, like the first 3 or so, they always had that look of, it's war. We want you to feel like it's real war, but we also want it to have almost that like serialized film, like Indiana Jones, like you're almost playing the promotional posters from World War II. That it has that, and like the old war movies from like, say, like the 60s and 70s, especially the 60s, that were like almost romanticized it in this way that like it was real, but it felt like heroic, and not getting into the Spielberg of it. And I think that's what they're doing here. So it didn't hit me as being like unattractive. It wasn't going for photoreal. And I made that comment. You're not going to think this is, you're not going to mistake this for the new COD or the new Battlefield, but it has some things going on in there that are incredibly impressive. Hence, I think the specs. But back to your original point, holy crap, it would have been nice to be able to take that, say, that lighting slider and turn it down for people who wanted to be able to run it and at all.
Yeah, it's to recommend a 2080 and then not giving any options at all to reduce the load was like, oh, it's not recommended, it's required. They should have said required 2080, not recommended, because there's no option to dumb anything down. But now there is.
Some guys have gotten it to run though, like again, but that's the PC bullshit, right? Is that some people have just optimized systems and they can run it, but like I've heard guys on 2060s running it decent. But on my 3080, I actually found multiplayer chugged to touch, but that's one of the things I noticed came in the most recent patch, like yesterday, is there's been optimizations in multiplayer specifically. Now, let me just say something very quickly that relates to the graphic thing that I should say before I say that I was having issues in multiplayer. When I was playing single player, one of the things that I noticed was that even on the highest settings and even with the specs that they wanted, I felt the game looked very soft. Like it was a game that had a lot of rich detail, and I didn't see the sharpness. It felt like it had heavy anti-aliasing on, but it didn't. It just didn't feel like it was sharp. And so I actually went in, bumped up super sampling, and then actually went in and bumped up my multiplier on my headset resolution, and I was like, okay, now it's looking it looks pretty good when you sharpen that up, but that's only because I had the headroom to do that.
Yeah.
When I went into multiplayer, I had to take that all off. So, but just bringing this back to our original things for people who are like, I don't care about PC. The point I think that we're making is that you got a AAA developer dropping the ball all over the place. Visuals, controls, performance, and I think ultimately, and this is I think where we're going with this, is expectations.
Yes. Because
when I heard that this was Medal of Honor series, big AAA series, this was a game that was originally going to be flat. They rerouted this, or in my term, I said an about turn, trying to use my military terms. They went to Go VR, and then it was built from the ground up. And for those of you who don't know who Respawn is, who was the developer here, Respawn Entertainment is actually built up from the ashes of a bunch of the main people that left. Oh my gosh, why am I screwing? My brain is not working today. Infinity Ward. Respawn was built from the ashes of Infinity Ward, which was basically the main developer for the longest time on the Call of Duty series. So Respawn was a Call of Duty developer that basically went and made Titanfall, which screamed Call of Duty with mechs. They made Titanfall 2.
Oh, yeah.
They made Apex Construct, the big battle royale game. They made the most recent Star Wars
Fallen Order?
Yes, which was great. Like one of the better Star Wars games made in a very long time. So they make really good games. And I was like, oh my god, Respawn's making a multiplayer war game, and they know shooters better than anyone in the industry. Like, their pedigree is unmatched for FPS games. Holy
Yeah.
crap. And then when we jump into this game, and the single players, it plays well. The gunplay is fun. You can tell they know
Yeah.
what they're doing with guns and shooters. But the multiplayer was like, here's 10 guns. Pick if you want an extra grenade. That's your loadout. There's no progression. It's 6v6. Go have fun, and like that's and there's like there's modes, but the lobbies have been so empty. It's only been doing team deathmatch anyways,
Yeah.
or free for all, and it's just like, how does a company that almost invented the modern multiplayer shooter just completely shit the bed and phone in the multiplayer, but the foundation's there. It looks good. It plays good. If you've got the performance for it, and the guns feel good, but then what the hell?
Look, I agree. To me, it kind of shows. I mean, VR and multiplayer has always been kind of very few games have been successful in multiplayer and VR. On PC, we have games like Onward or what's the other, Pavlov.
Contractors, Population
Contractors,
1.
thank you. Yep, but even then, it's a short list. Even going off those four, like,
Totally.
we're talking about like Solaris. Like Solaris, to my knowledge, hasn't really made a dent in the multiplayer gaming on PC side. And then we talk about PlayStation. Firewall has had a pretty solid following since its launch. But beyond that, there's been so few games, one, that have come out for multiplayer in the first place, but two, that have actually sustained a player base. So I can't help but thinking that, I mean, that's out there. I mean, if you make a multiplayer-only game for VR, you're basically making your game to die, unless it's absolutely mind-blowing and it does something better than the other one.
You really know how to grow that community, which Big Box, who made Pop 1, does. And for you PSVR headsets, like, you're going to get it. I don't know what that's going to look like, but like, if you guys follow me and Ryan, then you know that we're both not one to blow sunshine up your ass about games that are going to come to PSVR, like Zero Caliber. If PSVR gets Zero Caliber, you're not going to want to play it. Let's put it that way. Pop 1, you're going to get it, and it's going to play great because it runs on the Quest. We've seen that. So your PS4s, even the base PS4 is going to slay that game. The reason I say I don't know what kind of what version it's going to take on is that I could see them possibly making it not cross-platform, keeping it on the PlayStation, because there's going to be aim controllers that people are going to want to use. They know that. The mechanics are going to have to get changed, I think, because I think it's unfair to have all that climbing mechanic switched over to the aim with guys with
press A to climb. Yeah.
Wait, and especially or just push up on it, and then on top of that, those guys have gun stocks, basically. That just seems like it's a balancing issue. They don't want to kill the game, so I think I could see them possibly segmenting the market or allowing PC and Quest guys to turn off crossplay.
I'd imagine that's the same way. I mean, like, PlayStation does have enough of a player base and a demand. I mean, Population 1's a great game,
and it's good enough that, it's good enough. It's like Firewall.
Yeah,
it would demand the audience. It's good enough that audience, and there's not enough competition that's all they'd play.
Yeah,
and,
no, I like say Pop 1's a guaranteed success. It's basically on PlayStation, if it releases, it's a guaranteed success.
It's also one of those genres though where it's like, if you like your battle royales, once you find a battle royale, you kind of live that battle royale. You don't often go anywhere. Whereas, that's like, if you're a Fortnite player, that's your jam. And that's why I always thought First Contact was so smart to basically make a VR version of Rainbow Six, because I was reading this article that was saying that, like, it doesn't matter what game. We have had multiple CODs. We've had at least 2 Battlefields, and Apex Constructs and Fortnites and all these epic shooters, Titanfall 2, that have come and gone in the last 4 years. And Rainbow Six's streaming numbers have, like, never moved. Because the people who are Rainbow Six do not give a shit about all those other games. Because they are not tactical team shooters.
Right.
And it's the same with your Onward crowd.
Yep, totally. I mean, all those games. If you build that and that's your niche title, and no one else can come, like, if someone else comes after you and does something that you do better, that's fine. But like I said, no one does. I mean, there's no Firewall competitor. It's that, or you don't play tactical shooter. It's just that simple.
Well, it's pretty much that, or you don't play a first-person shooter, really.
Right, I guess so. But yeah, so like I said, it's very easy to get sidetracked on this thing. So you're basically going over how like, Respawn, they know this is what they do. This is like they make these things, and yet.
So how are they surprised when we're like, yeah, the multiplayer is pretty empty?
And I think they're honestly, I mean, we've seen this time and time again, me and you both, where developers make their games inside a box. So they test it in house. They only do everything's internal. And what happens is they kind of start listening to their own BS. So, if as a developer, like I said, VR multiplayer games are that's dangerous. That's dangerous grounds. Medal of Honor has a full campaign backing it up. But so I can see where they're like, you know what? If we're gonna have a smaller play base, let's just make it. How many players is this one? Is it 5v5?
It's either 5v5 or 6v6. I can't remember now.
Yeah, and that's the cap. So it's 12-player multiplayer, which is small. For VR, it's all
not
right.
bad, but some of those maps got some size.
Yeah,
like the one at Normandy.
Man,
you can run down on the beach, come back up the beach, up onto like the top of the. I'm not a war guy. I can't even talk about this. Like up to the top of the hill, and then you've got pillboxes, and you've got like like hallways running underneath with structure and other outside buildings. That's a massive that could have been a Battlefield map.
No, some of the maps in here are crazy. To have only 12 guys or less running around, it does populate with bots, I guess.
Dumbass bots,
dumbass bots. I still appreciate it because, like I said, VR and multiplayer, it's a dicey game.
Yes.
And but like you said, but you'd still think they'd want to entice people to play a Medal of Honor multiplayer. They should have the options. They should have that progression. It should be motivating you to come back and play this for reasons besides because I like to shoot people. I think it's not enough. It's not enough for us.
I know, there's just no progression system.
There's nothing. You unlock skins during the campaign, and that's basically your progression. That's it.
So here's my theory. Tell me what you think of this. I think that, first of all, I've heard that this has actually got one of the biggest budgets of any VR game, period. And I think having played through the campaign, it does show. Like the game has moments it's chopped up, guys. I mean, if you go back and watch my review, it's just very segmented by like cinematics and then reload screens that have kind of been cleaned up, but it's still very handholdy. It gets better as you get into the second and third missions and so on. The game is about let's call it a 6 to 7 hour campaign, I guess, and it's very gorgeous. Like it's just filled with epic moments of big budget gaming on there. Like, I mean, there's like its single player campaign outside of it being a little handholdy. I said is in some ways it is mandatory VR. Like you've never played anything that's like on this level. I will put people in this game to show them where VR is at. And like that's the thing. As much as I don't like the fact that a lot of people can't run this, I do think that VR sometimes needs to just show off and go, look at what we can do. Just
No, like say, I want to kind of backtrack on that where I said it's not the best looking game, and I said it's because it's populating stuff. Like if you look, there's certain sections of that game where you're just in a giant hangar. It's an empty hangar. There's like a plane or something, whatever. But if you look up at the rafters, you can see every individual beam in that thing is being rendered in 3D. Like until you can't stop seeing. Like there's no shortcuts with like 2D JPEGs. That's what's impressive. Where like everything feels like it's there. It
feels
doesn't
AAA,
like I said, it doesn't feel like any shortcuts were taken. Like so other than some game design choices, which I think were, like I said, for VR, as far as like loading scenes and how the campaign's broken up. And like you said, they did fix the way it was done, where you had to like basically mission one is broken down into like 10 separate parts or more, and each time you finish a part, it's like victory, loading screen, press trigger to continue, back to your cutscene. Yeah. And they've since fixed it now, where it's basically it just streamlined. As soon as the game's done loading, you're back in the action.
But you still get cutscenes after cutscenes, and it's literally like sometimes it's dropped into the like I think my description was like this is one part where you parachute in after you jump out of a plane, and that's epic. That whole plane scene where you're sitting on the like top gunning seat, and you're like circling around the plane as you're being swarmed by fighters. I mean, holy crap, that's VR at its best. Then you open the hangar bay and then jump out and parachute, and then but you come into this level and you parachute and you get caught in a tree, and then you get a scene where you shoot some guys. Then you get a guy that comes up to you. Hey, soldier, let me help you cut you down. You get down. Then he talks to you. Then you go shoot like 4 Nazis. You get another audio sync. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Then you kill like 6 more Nazis. You hit this house, and he sits down and talks to you again. You got to go find the uniform. Then you get the uniform. Then he talks to you some more. Then he says, "Okay, we're gonna hold up this caravan, son." And then you stand there, locked in place, and then shit goes down, and you kill another 3 Nazis, and then you get another cutscene, and then a loading screen. Like, I kid you not, that was like part of a mission.
That's accurate. Yeah,
and
no, that's totally accurate.
So back to my original point. Is Medal of Honor, when it was first announced, it was just where they're making a Medal of Honor VR game. Awesome. Then we started to see gameplay footage, and it was like, holy crap, this campaign looks amazing. It wasn't until, if you think about it, it wasn't like probably I would say the last 8 months when they actually started saying, oh yeah, it's going to have a multiplayer suite. I have a feeling that this game was going to be the campaign, and at some point they went, we could throw multiplayer in there. People are expecting that. They want that. I don't think that was the focus, because all that money seems to have gone into the single player, obviously, and all those multiplayer maps, although I think they're actually pretty decent maps, are totally
from the campaign,
from the opened up parts of the campaign.
Yep. No, it definitely feels tacked on, and it has the benefit of being part of a great game. Like, the gameplay in this game is solid, so the multiplayer by no means isn't bad. It just feels, like I said, it feels like a bonus. There's no reason to return. It's the same reason, like, Code 51 is getting some love this episode here. But I love Code 51. Game. That game looks amazing. It
love
plays
Code
great.
51.
It's so fun, and there's no reason to go back. There's no progression. There's no.
There was also 3 levels
mechs.
too.
You unlock mechs. I think that was the progression.
Yeah, that was actually pretty decent. Those mechs were freaking wicked when you unlocked them.
Yeah,
but there was only 3 maps.
You're done, and then they just go online, and if you don't find a match, you play with bots, and that's exactly what Medal of Honor is. If you don't find a matchup, you play with bots, and the bots, like I said, you want to get your kill count up, play against bots. They'll kill you eventually because they're pretty good shots, but they take their time in between firing, and you can kind of easily outmaneuver them. Like I said, it feels totally tacked on, and I hope Respawn's getting the message that we want more, and I hope sales warrant them to support the game going down the line.
I don't
there's
think
no reason why the world.
But I don't think it will. I think it's.
I doubt it.
I bet you it's tanked because it was priced at $80 for us.
Yep.
So full price game. That's $60, I think, in the States or something. But full price game with a 6 to 7 hour campaign that was fairly linear. So it was very much like an experience, mind you, a good one if you could run it, and then a multiplayer suite that could be amazing.
And it also came out on a really wonky day.
Well, Cyberpunk.
Specifically Cyberpunk. It came out opposite like one of the biggest games of all time, and
one of the few games that could pull VR gamers.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean? Like, those guys like, I love my VR and that's all I play, but I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to take a break for Cyberpunk.
Yeah. And I'm sure many did. I mean, like I said, that's a game that will that will take away VR players from VR. And I guarantee it did, and I mean, I'm not sure where it lands now. It's like, are you playing Cyberpunk or Medal of Honor? But yeah. So yeah, I said it definitely was poorly timed. I'm not sure why they didn't. Once Cyberpunk released their new date, I don't know why Medal of Honor didn't bump it forward or backwards a week. I don't think that would have made a difference. Release date wise.
And let's talk about that for a second. Like, this is Medal of Honor. This is supposed to be the resuscitation of Medal of Honor. This is Respawn. This is EA. Where was the advertising for this thing?
Dude, I didn't know it was
weak.
Didn't know it was coming out till a week before. I knew it was coming out towards the end of the year, but I honestly forgot about it until it was just like a happenstance conversation where it's like, oh yeah, it comes out the same day as Cyberpunk. I was like, that comes out next week, and then I'm on the computer. I'm like, oh my god, it does.
This gets into my conspiracy theory though, in the fact that I feel that there's, like, we've seen it. You and I have seen it since 2016. There's been times where it really doesn't look like it. There's fear around VR.
Oh yeah.
Not just from like your console makers and stuff like your Sony and Xbox and stuff, but your games media, because I think it could change the way things, where the way the gaming industry plays out a little bit. It's harder to share that experience and report on it type thing.
Look, let's just say this thing bombs. Let's just say Medal of Honor is a giant tank.
Yeah, exactly.
They ate up tons of money, and let's just say down the road there's a let's make a Call of Duty, a full-on Call of Duty VR game.
And EA's gonna go, look, it didn't work.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. Like, now they tried that, it bombed. We're just make Call of Duty, over Black Ops 55, and we'll just squeeze more money out of people that way. And I cut you off there, but you're making the same point.
That was what I was gonna say. Yeah, it seems like, I mean, obviously, EA didn't go, let's put 30 million or whatever amount of money into development on this game, and then write that off and just so we don't have to do VR anymore. That's obviously not what happened. Respawn's they're probably passionate about making this game, but I think at some point EA just stopped. I don't feel like EA did not put EA muscle behind this game.
No. I mean, like I said, I honestly, like I said, as a guy in the VR community, I knew it was coming. I did not realize until a week before that it was out that week. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I didn't know that. And it just seems like, it's just like tossed out there lightly and then just forgotten about. Like, even Oculus, like there's been no promotion even from like anybody with regards to this game. There's been no commercials on YouTube. I haven't seen a damn thing about this thing. If I didn't know about it because of what I do, I don't think I would even know it was out until I went to the Oculus store and was like, available now. Like, oh shit, really? Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, let's talk Oculus. Warhammer drop. Nothing, no lead up to that other than the fact that we'd heard it was delayed. Jurassic Park drops out of nowhere. A Jurassic Park VR game. And I actually talked, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but I spoke to someone who was involved in the publishing side of that was like, yeah, we kind of didn't know what was happening with that until it did. I was like, how do you do that on a Jurassic Park game? And it's not just some shit mobile game, that would get crapped out on the mobile market. It's like, this is like it's a real VR game.
I've heard it's good. I haven't played it yet.
If you want to play a sneaking game for 3 hours, it's short. It's another episodic, like part 1 of 2 episodes and stuff. I haven't gotten a chance to play it, but it's not meaty. It's not something that you're gonna get. It's another VR experience. I hate to say that word, but I think it definitely goes more towards that than it is like a full-on game. But regardless, it's Jurassic Park, and it obviously had some money into it, and they just kind of it didn't work. It didn't do successful.
Yeah. No, it's bizarre. It absolutely is bizarre to me. And we've seen this countless times before in the past where, I mean, even like a different kind of thing would be Pistol Whip. Pistol Whip dropped like that day without any notice. Walking Dead. Sorry, not Pistol Whip. Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. We, all of us were all over that game on PlayStation. Like, when's this coming out? And there was no build up, no trailers or nothing. It just dropped. Suddenly it was in the Australia store that Monday.
I don't remember that.
It was like, oh man, it was crazy because I mean, a lot of us got codes beforehand, so we got word of it. But it was just like, yeah, here's your code. There's no obviously the release date's coming soon, but there was no confirmed release date. And then all of a sudden, like Monday's store, Australia, it just appeared, and we were all under embargo. We were all under embargo. That was the issue, right? Because our embargo was for a day after release, and it was like, but we didn't know that until then. But no one knew it was coming. We couldn't talk about it. It just dropped. Like there was like what there's no trailers, no like even from a developer side. Like I don't understand how you can't throw together a trailer and put it on social media. Like, why can't Respawn just chuck something together and just spam? I mean, I don't understand how even self-promotion, even from like indie developers who like just they're call it games released and that's it. Like, you're not making a trailer or nothing. It's out.
So here's a funny thing though that just hit me. Respawn has not. This is not Respawn's second time with doing like a dumb fuck release. And EA had their fingers pointed at them around this too, because some people wondered why they would do that and if there were any ulterior motives. But EA released Titanfall 2 like a week apart from Battlefield 1. I think it was 1. And it was like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing like it's like you're going to cannibalize one of these franchises. There's just no room. And there was COD had come out like 2 weeks earlier.
No, it was. Titanfall was right in the middle of both releases. It was like, why would you release your game between two of the biggest shooter franchises on the planet and try to compete with that? You're
go in March.
You're done. You're
like,
done.
Yeah, and end at Christmas, so you're competing with everything else too. And it was like, and shockingly, the multiplayer in Titanfall 2 died. And it was arguably the best of all three games. It had actually a pretty awesome campaign. It played really well to the point where they ended up releasing the multiplayer basically for free, I think. Or it was like a PS Plus thing or something. They ended up releasing all the DLC. I don't know. I don't remember what the details were, but I remember going, "Holy crap! They just put that game out there for nothing." And yeah, it's just they did it again.
It's wild. It's wild that at this point in time, like I said, I understand like the growing pains of a new gaming industry like VR. I just don't understand how no one's learning the lessons. I don't understand how at this point in time we're still getting click turning only at launch, and then we have to fight, and then we're sitting there and fighting. And everyone's reviews like, oh my god, why the hell isn't this in here? And then maybe down the road it gets patched, maybe it doesn't get patched. But why? Why is this not an option? Why at this point in time is there not like a VR benchmark of things to check off?
I know.
Like I'm making a VR game. You print off this little checkmark sheet. Everybody gets the same one. It's pretty easy. Options. Put options in your game. We don't have to use them, but they're there. Comfort options, absolutely have them there. If you need like full on like 180-degree click turning is the best you can handle, fine. But for the love of God, smooth turning has to be in there at this point in time, because now we're coming to a point very quickly where these games are emulating reality quite nicely. And last time I checked in reality, I don't turn in 90-degree increments. And I've heard developers say, "Well, it's like if you blinked while you were turning. It's like the same thing." I don't blink when I'm turning. You can't sit there and try to backwards justify.
Now I'm watching my blinking. I'm like, okay.
Man, I tried. I remember when I heard that. I actually was like, okay, I'll blink and turn. And I was like, yeah, I guess it works. But I mean, I feel like a moron who blinks when he turns. Like, why is like? Don't tell me this is how I'm supposed to play. I should be able to enjoy your VR game like I enjoy sitting here looking around my room. I shouldn't have to sit there and like.
But this is the crap.
What is that?
This goes back to like what I talk about with like dumbass big games media, because it's like, so that whole idea, it's like, the gaming community is just, it's not mass adopting VR. And it's like, well, it could have something to do with every time a really big VR game comes out that they might give a crap about. You've got IGN, you got some dumbass over at IGN that releases his gameplay video, and he's click turning and teleporting through it. You know what? That looks so crappy. I can tell you, as someone who edits gameplay footage almost as a second living, it's hard to make VR look good, because you get a lot of like, you got this quick head movement, and to make that look smooth and not like and edit well on top, and then on top of that you're gonna have like click, 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 and teleport. And oh, shocker, that like your Call of Duty audience is like, it's not there yet for me. It's like,
no. And I think that's the thing, is they don't realize that VR is now competing fully with non-VR titles, and the bar is raised. We don't want half-assed versions of these games. Like if Call of Duty released a VR game and Medal of Honor was the multiplayer mode, like the multiplayer mode in Medal of Honor was the Call of Duty version of that, like with no perks, no anything, no progression, who would be like, oh man, I love Call of Duty in VR? No, and the word's out, Call of Duty in VR sucks. And that's the word that sticks, because it does, because you're coddling an audience that doesn't need to be coddled anymore. We expect to have the full experience. If you're going to release a Medal of Honor game, I want the full Medal of Honor game. I don't want some half-assed version of multiplayer out there. Like, honestly, you shouldn't include multiplayer. If this is the version you're going to release with it, you should have just left it out. Maybe release it later as like a multiplayer patch or something, because it just hurts the game as a whole. Because look, it's like Medal of Honor, oh my god, it's amazing. Well, it was amazing. This is actually pretty mediocre and bare bones, and pretty much any developer could have made this version of multiplayer. It just looks really good because it's Medal of Honor, and
you might have buried your Medal of Honor franchise again. Like, come on, idiots.
Probably.
Right, like you're not helping the franchise here. So it's like, what are you doing? And this goes back to what I'd said in my review. I'm like, I have been adamant throughout the years in reviews of saying, like, to big developers, like, I mean, hats off to Ubisoft, because Ubisoft got in VR in the beginning. They made the mistakes. They've continued to make mistakes. They're not even after multiple games, they're not immune to their, like, dumb moments, like trying to release Space Junkies with, like, a lack of content, and then on top of it not realizing that PSVR people might want to use their Move controllers. Like, holy crap. And I actually talked to the main developer on that game on the VR chat show, where he was like, yeah, I really underestimated how much you guys, like, wanted to use those. I was like, how do you do that? He's like, oh, I just didn't really realize. It's like, just
no, it tells me these
call
devs
someone.
they have their heads in this, like I said, not say their heads in the sand, but they develop in a box, and they just think like this is really awkward to use this for Space Junkies. Well, who would want to use this? Toss it aside. There's no like follow up. Like, hey, let's just go to the community and see, like, would you rather have hands in VR or just like a joystick? And they patched in the Move controllers. The Move controllers work awesome. You can stay competitive with PC players. They worked great.
Well, they were like, they said that people wouldn't stay competitive, and my point was, well, let us decide that.
Yeah.
Because that's like not letting people with controllers play against PC guys with mouse and keyboard. There are guys on controllers that are freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not a level playing field, but let them decide that.
No, and I've said it 1,000 times. It's all about options. I said it here. I've said it before.
I always say
it's
that.
About options. Like, include them. If you don't like them, if it makes you sick. I mean, I've heard, like, what was it? Throw Anything, just some random ass like indie game. But the only turning option in that game was 180 turning on PlayStation VR. But stuff would come at you from the sides. So you'd constantly lose tracking in that game, constantly. And the developer said, we didn't put turning in that game because it made us sick. Well, okay, yeah, that's great, fantastic. The two guys that made this game, it made them sick. That's great.
Maybe you shouldn't be making a VR game.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, you know, like, but you can turn in, obviously, you can turn in real life. That's the thing. And I've heard that even from guys. You know, I bitched about Star Wars, Tales from Galaxy's Edge, and they're like, I said, it's click turning. It's ridiculous. Like, well, just play using your space. You have a quest. I'm like, that's not the point. If I want to, like, come home after a long day and, like, sit and just relax and play games, because there seems to be a divide where they think, because I'm in VR, I'm standing, I'm physical, I want to move around. VR is still very much it's a chill out experience for me. Yes. If I want to go and play Box VR or Beat Saber, all right, let's get physical. But if I want to sit there and play Firewall, it's nice to be able to still sit and shoot.
Which is what I said. I'm like, sometimes I want to play VR and not have to be a freaking action hero. Like, yeah, it's not it's just sucks. Not the way I play it.
Standing gets uncomfortable. You can have the best mats, and you basically have to wear shoes. But, like, after an hour of playing any game, it starts. You're just kind of like, you're shifting your feet. It's not. It gets old.
Especially when you're old.
Yeah,
well, when you're
like
not. I mean,
like you, not like me.
I know. Not like. But seriously, there's but there's young bucks that are in their. I'm sure that there's like. Guys that are like late teens and early 20s and stuff that are just like pop one for 4 hours and they're standing. I guess, to be fair, even when I was that old, I still was like sitting playing games like on my couch like a fat piece of shit. But that's just, to me, I'm like kind of like, gamers aren't exactly known for being.
Dude, it's why I laugh.
Super active.
Whenever I see those treadmills for VR, I laugh my ass off. In theory, that's a fantastic idea. In practice, I do not want to run around in Skyrim for 2 hours, like physically just run. If I was doing it for exercise, fantastic. But if I'm doing it because I want to play like Call of Duty, I want to sprint around the map like that. No,
but I always that's always my go-to joke. I'm like, can you imagine, especially when you suck like I do, playing a Battlefield game and it's like a good 7-minute run. You're just and you're on your treadmill, just giving her, and you're like, okay, fuck yeah, I'm here, bang, respawn. Are you kidding me?
See, I just picture a bunch of avatars hunched over, just
yeah. They're gonna start age dividing the maps.
What's your fitness level? That's your VR question in multiplayer shooters.
But really, die, respawn, like running into the big battlefields to get into it and then dying again. How many times are you gonna run in like that? Like, anyways, it's just options, because I feel like if you're servicing. If you're going out of your way to service the people who might feel motion sickness, I'm all down with that, because Absolutely. I want the most amount of people. at the same time, certain games, which most developers are pretty good at, realizing that, like, hey, you know what, we're not going to put teleportation into Pop 1 or Firewall or something, because it's like, yeah, like, we're not going to ruin the balance of the game. This game is a full movement title. It should be a full movement title.
But there's still blinder options.
But there's things we can do, and click turning
Yeah.
and stuff you can, and that won't necessarily unbalance the game. Those things you can do, but if you're going to serve those people, then, you know, serve the guys too that are like, you know, I'd like to be able to run a little quicker. I'd like to be able to smooth turn. I'd like to be able to jump.
Look, the same options are in flat games, so I don't understand why the same options can't be in first-person games. You can't sit there and tell me that, you know, if someone has a turn sensitivity of 10 in Call of Duty, and I'm stuck at a 5, that's my issue.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I have the same option in VR? You know, you can turn in real life, that's fine. But like I said, if I just want to sit and I just want to chill and I got to hit the thumbstick to turn right, let me turn smooth right at my own pace, whatever pace I'm comfortable with. If I get shot in the head because I'm turning too slow, because that's the setting I like, I'm fine with that. But if I get shot in the head because my turn speed's so goddamn slow, I can't turn fast enough to shoot the guy, I'm pissed. I'm pissed, Shug.
Can you think of, here's a thing though, and for those of you listening to this, fire off in the comments if you got an answer on this. Can you think of I've got a few in my head across PSVR, Quest, and PC. Can you think of, how many games can you think of that, like, uncompromisingly just went for it? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm even thinking about even some of these ones that are like, people are like the best of the best in VR games. Half-Life Alyx is slow as crap. And it still had you teleporting to basically get up on anything. You know, sort of a ladder, but there was no climbing, there was no jumping. It was very, to the point where I actually Googled this and found out that, like, hey, it's a huge thing that there's literally a hack that there's a line of code that you could go into Steam and just, like, put into the whole, it's like this easy there's a little line of code that you can do on startup, and it can alter games in, like, minor ways. And it was like a commonly passed around hack to, like, double the running speed in Half-Life Alyx. It's like, I'm just saying, like, I was like, man, this game's kind of slow, right?
Yeah, there's no run button. Right? There's no run button. It's only the one.
It's
pace,
just
right?
kind of like, it's, you know, and it's kind of like sometimes developers do that to pad their games so that you can't, like, you know, Robinsons, so you can't just run through the game in like 2 hours. But I'm just saying, there's not a lot of titles that just balls out. Even Firewall, still pretty slow. I would say Population 1 is probably one of them. Just frickin' went for it. You know, like Boneworks, definitely. Like,
even like Walking Dead, whenever it comes down to the best VR game of the year, to me it comes down to those two titles.
And it's a little slow. Even Walking Dead.
Walking Dead's slow, but I mean,
the game was built around that though, because you're trying to be quiet.
If you could just sprint around zombies, then it would just be it'd be hilarious actually.
But there are times when I'm like, oh man, I gotta drink a. I'm like, there are times when it must look hilarious that I'm like running through The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, double fisting pop cans because I'm trying to keep my stamina up.
You know, Ace Combat. You only got 3 VR missions, but
that
there was no
balls out, man.
There was no that's to me that's kind of to your point a bit as far as like, you know, you're stuck in a cockpit, but there was no, if you got sick in VR, that game was gonna make you sick in VR. There's not, I don't think there's one VR setting in there except play, and it's awesome for it. I absolutely love that experience.
Yeah, the game was Ace Combat was the ultimate PSVR tease, I think, and GT Sport, where both games were like, yeah, you could do this, we could do this, but we're not going to do this. In the case of Ace Combat, I think it was a money thing, and I think in the case of GT Sport, it was just Polyphony going, no, we don't want to we're not willing to sacrifice visuals. Yeah. But again, those are both games that were like, whoo, like, yeah, you know. And then there's a lot more examples of that on PC. There are, I guess, what I'm thinking of, there are a lot of games in cockpits that are balls out, but there's not a lot of walking around. There's not a lot of walking around games that really went for it. Like when I first Boneworks was one of the first games I played when I got a headset that wasn't a PSVR, and it was like the littlest thing that blew my mind was when I went to jump, my guy like did a little crouch and leap, like you would do in real life, and I was just like, yeah, my mind was blown. I was like, oh yeah, you don't immediately just spring off the floor when you jump.
Yeah, no, and and like I said, going, like, it comes back to my point where we want that stuff in VR. We want that full immersion. We want to see, and like I said, and we notice those things. You don't think, you said, just that little shift of a body before you jump. We notice that because it's part of making things real, and that's what we want of these things. We want these things to feel real.
Which is one thing that Medal of Honor did kill, and I loved it. I made a comment in my review. I made a comment in my stream. First thing I noticed when I went to run across, like, I think I ran over to the gun range. I was like, oh, that little head bob. And you could turn that off, but man, it felt so good. Like, I felt like, and you could hear the gear going, ring, 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 ring. And I was just this, like, I was like, you do that, and then you give me click turning?
Yeah. No, it makes no sense.
Like, even if you want to talk about a comfort thing, like, my wife doesn't do well in comfort. And I tell you, she went for a run in that game, and it was like the head was bouncing along. She'd just be, so you gave us the option to turn that off too. Anyways, just dumb fuck moves, but it's like, I don't know. So coming up on 55 minutes here, is there anything you wanted to touch on?
No, really. I mean, there is stuff I want to get to as far as other games launching poorly. Like I mentioned, Gollum. Just developers shortcutting us as far as Ace Combat, because originally the whole game was VR. Then it was like 10 stages. Then it was 5 stages. Then it was 3 stages. And Aspire 1 was one I wanted to talk about because that thing launched horribly, not from a AAA dev, just from a new startup there from Australia, I believe. I know you talked to them, but their game launched abysmally. I even waited for a few patches before I reviewed it, and it was awful. It was terrible. It was brutal. It was just, the promise was Metal Gear in VR, and it wasn't even close. To me, it was clunky. I know you reviewed it much more recently, and you said it fared much better.
And the new update, there's a brand new update. And it's a lot of year. It is, and well, the new update, we did interview. I did interview them on the VR chat channel, and it was the best interview I've ever done since I started doing this stuff, because this guy we gave him the questions beforehand. I can't remember his name now; it's completely leaving me. And he knew, like, Jason was really straight up and said, "Look, we're gonna throw a couple punches, but we're gonna hug you when we're done." And it was exactly what the interview was, is that, like, he knew that I was gonna give him some tough questions, things that devs don't normally submit to, and his answer to why did the PSVR version, why was it so crappy, and he didn't get into it because there's a little bit of shit throwing going on between Digital Load and what the heck was their name? Tripwire. Thank you. Between the two of them about whose responsibility it was, but regardless, I think at the end of the day it was the dev, and that was them. And they said that one of the lessons they learned is not, as a small developer, to not do a triple platform release. And that basically they did the PC version on its own because they could go balls out on that. They didn't have to really worry as much about power restrictions. Then they did the Quest version because they needed to make sure it would run on the lowest powered hardware. And so that was its own version, the Quest version. The PSVR version then became this really is the tale of three versions, because you had your one version that was like the show off one, the one that was like, well, we got to make it run, and it ran really well because it was optimized to run on like a phone. And then then the PlayStation was kind of left to, I mean, it needed to be optimized heavily too, but it didn't get the TLC in the time that the Quest version got. And they admitted, they shouldn't have been put out, and I think they felt pressured to meet those deadlines. And that was a game that was delayed big time too, kind of like Cyberpunk. Like, it was kind of the last minute, like, sorry guys, it's going to be another month or two. And it was one of those games where when it came out, it was like, you might as well have just released it in 6 months, because no one's going to play it in this state anyways. It really is the in the Cyberpunk situation, the PSVR version was the PS4 version.
Yeah. No, I buy that. Yeah, no, I had other stuff to talk about, but I think it actually fits another episode idea.
I was going to say that feels like another episode, totally.
No, it really does, actually, kind of breaking it down. So really, I'm done. I mean, the bottom line here from both of us is the same. Options are key, and I mean across not just VR comfort options. I mean, on the PC side, have your graphic options. Have all those options should be there. Anti-aliasing, super sampling, all that stuff. It should still be there. PlayStation side too, controller options. If you can if you use your moves or DS4, if you have hands in VR on PlayStation, we want move controllers. It just makes sense. Every games have figured out how to do it using every button on there. And like Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners is a prime example of maximizing full immersion with those stupid bulbous controllers. It works. You can do it. So don't sit there and say, well, the move controllers, they don't really work that good. Well, they can definitely not work. I was going to say
there's two conversations there. There's we don't want to give you this control type because the game wasn't designed around that, or it wasn't built for that. That's one. I'm like, okay, that's different. If your game is like, look, if we give you full motion on this game, like like for example, like
budget cuts.
Crisis. Yeah, I was gonna say budget cuts was an old. I mean, that's an OG, but that's an OG VR game that was built around those fears.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is like Crisis Brigade, for example, it's a game that's a cover-based shooter like Crisis, like Time Crisis. That's the game.
Yeah.
So when people are like, it's teleportation only, I'm like, yeah, but that's the freaking game.
It's the genre.
That is the game.
It's the genre. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You can't just have it. But it's like, but if it's a game where it does work, where those options work, don't make the decisions for us.
Yeah.
That's
what we're saying. We give us the option. We'll play it the way we can, not the way you want.
But I think that there's two big takeaways though from our conversation today. There's the accessibility and choices and giving us the options and them still making these dumb decisions of feeling like they developed inside inside some kind of a bubble, right, and not paying attention. Or just being stubborn. That's a thing too. Like the Gorn developers were like, no. They got nothing but complaints on PC, but when it came to the PSVR, like, no. It's innovative. It's innovative, and it's like, you know what? Jesus Christ. But then there's another. I think the other takeaway from this, outside of the control situations, is like we were just circling back. Is then there's the debacle of AAA developers deciding to dip their toe into VR waters finally and half-assing it. And, and that's just one point that I didn't get to finish, and this is kind of probably a close off on this side of the discussion is I've always said, like, and I referenced Ubisoft, this is where I was going to go with this, is that I've always said, like, get in there. Go make some mistakes. Because they always say that the VR is such an early industry, like, what's his face? Shuhei at over at PlayStation had said that he saw PSVR as the PlayStation 1, in the fact that it was breaking new ground. It was making the rules, and it was gonna make mistakes, and it was gonna be rough sometimes. But that's what innovating looks like, and so I think that idea though has to be taken to the developers too. They got to get in there, and it's like it's like good. Okay, EA, great. Like I really want you to get into VR. Maybe you shouldn't have done it with one of your biggest franchises.
Yeah, and like I said, maybe
as much as we want that.
Look, maybe this game gets support. Maybe a year down the road, they've learned their lessons as far as what happens. But like you said, we still have Assassin's Creed's doing their own VR thing, and Splinter Cell's getting VR thing too, right? So,
but then what, they half-ass those too? Like
I don't know. That's kind of the conversation that I was gonna get onto. We talk about other stuff. We'll talk about later, but Arkham and VR and there's so many other LA Noire. All these we'll talk about that another time about half-assing it. But to your point, you're 100% right. I mean, they need to do this thing right. They need to, like I said, I'm not sure why they develop, ask questions, go to other communities, see, even just read reviews, there's got to be someone that can spend a day doing some research into VR and be like, oh look, as it turns out they do like smooth turning. Who knew? But this is we're having this conversation because Medal of Honor released without smooth turning. This is still a relevant thing to be maybe Doug over in financing could just send him on YouTube for a day and just see what he finds,
or just put your hand up. Does anybody actually play VR in this place?
Yeah, right. And then if no one puts their hands up, maybe you guys shouldn't be developing.
They're like, oh yeah, I know, man. I played Job Simulator and I like Beat Saber.
So I'm gonna Gear VR over here.
So I'm gonna make my first-person shooter. Yeah. Anyways, I feel bad that if there's any, if there actually are some people who are Respawn there that are hardcore VR guys, and they were just like, oh, our hands were tied. EA told us to do it, and that could very likely be the thing too.
Probably. Like I wouldn't be surprised.
And if EA turned around and said you got to do multiplayer.
Yeah. No, I don't doubt there's pressure from EA to get this thing out at a certain time and do everything else. I'm not saying it's like all on Respawn, but there's just at the same time it just sucks to have this. Like we didn't need Medal of Honor December 12th. We didn't need that. If it could have waited till January 17th and you could have just patched in everything, no one would have batted about it because no one even noticed your game came out.
Well, I'd like to close this off then here as we're rounding the hour. I'd like to leave it on a high note. I would say for all the crap that we have given Medal of Honor, considering who the publisher is on this, being EA, we should be thankful that the inclusion of smooth turning was not a microtransaction, and that multiplayer wasn't paid DLC. And I'm half joking, half not joking.
This is our high point.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it was. You know what? For all my shitting on it in the review, it was something that was not. It did not go over my head about the fact that we did get a full EA experience without microtransactions, without season passes, without strings.
It's the nature of what we're doing here. It's to bitch to make a point, but by no means. I mean, I'm not sure what you would. I mean, you don't score games, I guess. But I mean, I haven't finished Medal of Honor yet, so I can't give it a score. It's going to be above a 7, probably closer to an 8 for sure.
I'd probably give it a 7.
I haven't finished playing it, so I can't really give my full thoughts. But it's not a bad game by any stretch. So to sit there and say like they dropped the ball, they didn't drop the ball. They just like missed the mark a bit. Is kind of what we're getting.
It is one of those things where, man, I really wanted to end off on that on my little EA.
I'm
sorry.
But
no, I know. I was just gonna say that like when I was reviewing this game, I was like, I totally understand now why I hate to reference them, but why IGN reviews Call of Duty games often as this is the single player campaign, this is zombies, this is multiplayer, because I feel like this is very similar to the COD games where it's like we've given you a really good campaign. It's not deep, but it's got a ton of production budget behind it. It's gonna blow your mind, but when you're done it, you're probably gonna be done it, and that's it. That's very much like what this is going for. The only thing is that the Call of Duty games then have this completely different game in there. And now it's like 3 games with zombies, and it's kind of like the value offering is there outside of it. So it's just hard to review it because it's like, I know Nathy said, and he was a big proponent of this, and he said they should release the multiplayer separately and charge like $30 for it or something. Just to keep the price down. I think mainly on the single player.
I see that.
I don't like separating games like that. I didn't really agree with it. But when you're reviewing it, it's kind of like if this was, I'm talking Canadian, but if this was a $50 game and you were playing that single player campaign, you'd probably be like, yeah, guys, this is pretty worth it. Yeah, this is pretty awesome.
No, it has so many highlight moments.
So it becomes that value proposition that weighs into the score, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I say that I haven't finished playing it yet, but you're not. It's definitely a valid point as to why or how these games are broken apart. But by no means, it's a phenomenal title, even with its shortcomings. Yeah, we should end it. Chug, where can we find you?
Yeah, we're on all the major podcast streaming sites, guys. So jump on there and hit a follow because we're stretching our legs a bit. And if you guys want to be on the ground floor, please leave comments what you want to see, what you want to hear, how would you like to see this grow? Because right now we're feeling our way through this, and your guys' opinion really matters on this. So let us know in the notes wherever you are what you think. But yeah, I'm Chris at Shuckhead Gaming, and this fellow next to me here is Ryan at the VR Grid. So you guys should check out our respective YouTube channels and all our socials and all that jazz. But yeah, we're VR.
Wherever you're watching or listening, just check the description. Our links will be there.
We do VR. That's what we do.
We do VR good. All right, everybody.
Anyways, guys,
for this one.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.